We want to turn to our first story here, which I certainly wish more people knew about, and that is an ongoing trial against a couple dozen individuals who were working to help refugees trying to get into the European Union. And we are very honored to be joined as we continue this conversation by one of those defendants, Mr. Pieter Wittenberg. Mr. Wittenberg, thank you so much for being with us.
Good night. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, we're really honored to have you here, and I think this is a story that maybe many of our listeners maybe have not heard a lot about, and they just heard maybe the broad outlines. But if you could maybe to start, just give us a capsule view of why you and others are on trial for trying to help refugees and what they are trying to charge you with.
We are on trial because we saved lives, and that's the answer.
Yeah.
Maybe the Greek government doesn't like us. Maybe the European Union is opposing more refugees. But this is a fact. We only were saving lives. The prosecutor thinks that saving lives is the same as espionage, human trafficking, putting up a criminal organization, being member of the criminal organization as well, money laundering, and so on and so on.
I was hoping you could, for our listeners, sort of walk through, how dangerous it is for refugees crossing into the European Union. I mean, you all are out there assisting them, but it's not as if, they just need a little bit of assistance. This is a really harrowing process, it seems.
Yes, it is, Eugene. It's a journey of only about 10 nautical miles from Turkey to one of the Greek islands. But they do this in a dinghy, in a rubber boat. And there are about 40 to 60 people in one boat, which is not designed in itself to be at sea. So when it is 10 meters from the shore, it's unseaworthy in itself. It's floppy, it's terrible. These people are in this boat and they have no experience whatsoever for being at sea. And they have to steer it and to run the outboarder in darkness, in the waves, and any wave that hit that boat brings water into the boat. So it's sinking from the first moment. These people are scared to death, and they don't know where to go. They're unexperienced, and they're crossing a shipping lane as well. We never heard about accidents with the ships in the shipping lane, because a big ship will not know that it hit a dinghy. So we can only see the corpses, and we don't know what happened. These people are trying to reach Europe, and they are looking for refuge. And the Coast Guard is not helping. The Greek Coast Guard is not helping. The Navy that's outside is not helping. They are trying to avoid any landings. There's no one that cares for them. Only the NGOs, and they do what the governments doesn't do. They don't do, because these governments have signed many international agreements, like the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Man, 1948. Sorry, Mrs. Roosevelt did. Nobody's helping them. So as long as the governments don't do what they are supposed to do, it are the volunteers and the NGOs that try to save their lives. And now we are in the courthouse, intimidated. That means that other NGOs and other volunteers are scared to go and help them. There's no one in the beach anymore. So the refugees are paying the bill. It's not us. It are the refugees. They're paying the bill.
Can you walk us through like what exactly are the charges here and what precedent, if this actually goes through, if this prosecution is successful, what precedent does it set for future attempts at life-saving measures for refugees?
Well, the charges are espionage, money laundering, being a member or yes, a member of a criminal organization, put up a criminal organization as well. The problem is that here laws that are in our rules and are normal are misused for a goal that we fear is to get NGOs that try to save lives and people that want to help to intimidate them and tell them don't do it, because there are 24 at this moment 24 risking a punishment of 24 years.
So it seems clear here that part of this is to deter humanitarian efforts from, as you're saying, I mean, saving people who otherwise, I mean, the government's not doing anything to save them, the Navy's not doing anything to save them. And it reminds me of this policy that we have in the United States at the border, which is called, it's not called this officially, but others have called it death by deterrence. Or deterrence by death. And so the idea is you want to maximize the dangers and the deaths of the route of refugees, right? So that others who are considering making the journey will hesitate and perhaps not make it in order to decrease the number of refugees. So is that what you think is happening here as well? I mean, on top of, is that the ultimate goal, do you think, of trying to deter humanitarians from helping save lives, is to have that sort of, deterrence by death policy in place? In other words, maximizing the number of people who are harmed or die on their way to try to get to Europe.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree. This is the ultimate goal of the European Union and the governments of Greece, Italy, Spain, France. And this is so dangerous because it's a poison. It really is a poison. And it's spreading in an unprecedented way because nobody knows what happens there. There are no journalists anymore. So there are pushbacks. I guess this is a pushback. Yes. It's terrible. They are pushed back, and we call it in Europe, we call it illegal pushbacks. But every pushback is illegal.
One thing I'm curious is, what led you to become involved in these efforts?
First of all, because it has to be done. Excuse me. It has to be done, and I have the time for it, and I have all certificates to run a boat and to operate the radio on a boat. So I felt I had to do something. There's something else. My father flew out of Czechoslovakia 1939, just before Hitler marched in. He's a Jew, and he came to Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam were nice people that helped him and guided him through the war during 5 years. And that's the only reason I was born in Amsterdam. And I was as lucky to be born there. And until now, there's no need to run away from Holland. Mm-hmm. So I thought I had to pay the bill for my father. and pay back what people did to him, to other people.
I also am curious if there's been a backlash. What has been the reaction in the public, at least in in Greece or even in the EU? Has there been pushback against this? Is any of that pushback coming from any government, or is this something that the entire European Union is sort of on board with and supporting?
I guess the European Union is supporting it, but not saying it out loud. They're paying for it. They know about it. There was an investigation by the European Union that the body police of the European Union, Frontex, was watching by when the Greek Coast Guard were doing pushbacks, and they didn't report it. So yes, it is hidden, but it's on purpose, and nobody cares about lives. The only thing the European Union is caring is not to get that much and that many refugees. It's hard to say, very cruel, but this is my conclusion.
Well, let me ask you this. For those who are watching who are wondering if there's a way to support you all on trial or just the overall efforts, is there anywhere you would direct them?
I could direct them to, let's see, Free Humanitarians. You can find it on the internet and on Facebook as well.
Well,
you can
Mr.
follow
Wittenberg,
that.
we really appreciate you being willing to join us here on the freedom side, and certainly we'll continue to track this story the best we can. And thanks again for staying up late for us.
Thank you. Hope to see you in better times.
Mm-hmm.